Do you often find yourself faced with the criticisms and opinions of others? How many times have you felt inadequate, shocked, or speechless when faced with someone's contradictory and embarrassing statements? Would you like to learn how to best overcome moments like this without having to worry about the judgment of others? Would you like to learn to be indifferent, to feel like yourself, and live peacefully? If your answer is yes, then this video is for you, because thanks to a Zen story, you will learn to act as if nothing had happened and no one was bothering you. The Buddhist wisdom and timeless teachings you will hear will show you how to find inner peace and emotional balance, even in the face of the most difficult challenges. And if you stay until the end of the video, you will discover how to free yourself from the weight of other people's judgment and regain confidence in yourself. And again, how to face adversity calmly and wisely without letting yourself be overwhelmed by negative emotions and living an authentic life in harmony with your values. But before continuing, subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so that you are informed when we publish new content for your spiritual growth. As the morning sun filtered through the bamboo leaves, the elderly Buddhist monk Ariko walked slowly in the monastery garden, absorbed in his thoughts. It was the day he would teach a crucial lesson to his disciples. Act as if nothing or no one bothers you. Arriving at the main pavilion, the disciples waited impatiently, sitting in a circle. There was Taro, young and impetuous, eager to prove his worth. Hana, shy and introverted, tried to hide her insecurities. Kenji, intelligent but anxious, constantly feared the judgment of others. And many more, each with their own hopes, fears, and aspirations. Ariko took her place in the center, her gaze calm and serene. "My dear disciples," he began in a deep, melodious voice, "today I will tell you about a fundamental principle for achieving inner peace and balance." A murmur of curiosity spread among the disciples. Ariko smiled slightly. "I understand your surprise. We live in a world full of distractions, negative events, people who can hurt or upset us. But true wisdom lies in not allowing these external influences to disturb our inner peace, to shake our imperturbability." The monk stood up and approached Taro. "Taro," he said gently, "imagine yourself as a quiet lake. The waters are clear and serene, but then a strong wind picks up and the waves start to shake. What happens to the lake?" Taro thought for a moment before answering. "Master, the lake loses its calm. The waters become cloudy and agitated." Ariko nodded. "Exactly. But what happens when the wind dies? The lake gradually returns to its calm. The waters calm down and regain their clarity." "That's right, Taro. Our mind is like that lake. External events, the words or actions of others, are like the wind that can disturb the waters. But if we learn not to react, not to allow these influences to shake our inner peace, then our mind will always return to its natural serenity." Ariko turned to all the disciples again. "Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying we should ignore what's happening around us or suppress our emotions. Instead, we need to be aware of what we feel, but without allowing these emotions to control us. We must learn to observe our thoughts and sensations with detachment, as if we were spectators of a film." Hannah raised her hand. "Master," he asked with a trembling voice, "but how do we not let ourselves be influenced by the judgment of others? I often feel inadequate, as if I am never enough, and this creates an enormous sense of frustration for me." Ariko smiled at her warmly. "Hana, the judgment of others is just an opinion, a reflection of their insecurities and fears. It doesn't define who you really are. Your essence is pure and luminous, like a rough diamond. Don't let other people's words dim your shine. Remember, true strength lies in self-acceptance, in recognizing your intrinsic worth, regardless of what others think or say." Then, addressing all the disciples, he continued, "This does not mean becoming indifferent or insensitive. On the contrary, Acting as if nothing and no one bothered us allows us to develop greater compassion and understanding towards others. Because when we are no longer slaves to our emotional reactions, we can see things more clearly and act with wisdom and benevolence. "Listen to this story," said Eriko. One day, a samurai went to a Zen master to ask him for advice on how to achieve inner peace. The master invited him to sit down and offered him a cup of tea. While the samurai drank, the master continued to pour the tea until the cup overflowed. "Master," exclaimed the samurai, "the cup is full. It cannot hold any more tea." The master smiled and said, "Like this cup, your mind is full of opinions and prejudices. And if you want to learn something new, you have to empty your cup first." The samurai understood the lesson and thanked the master. From that day on, he committed himself to practicing meditation and cultivating a beginner's mind, open and receptive to new experiences. Eriko concluded the story by saying, "Like the samurai, we too must learn to empty our minds of negative thoughts and destructive emotions. Only then will we be able to welcome the peace and serenity that reside within us." The disciples remained silent, reflecting on the master's words and retracing their memories linked to past events and encounters in which they had found themselves in certain situations. Then Kenji asked, "Master, how can we not worry about what others think? I'm afraid of disappointing the people I care about." Eriko calmly replied, "Kenji, the fear of disappointing others is a trap that prevents us from being authentic. Remember that you cannot control the thoughts and expectations of others, but you can choose to be true to yourself, follow your heart, and live your life according to your values." The monk continued, "Remember, your happiness does not depend on the approval of others. True joy comes from within, from the knowledge that you have done your best and have lived a meaningful life. And if others don't understand or accept your choices, don't let that discourage you. Your path is unique, and only you can walk it." Master, Taro intervened, "How can we apply this teaching in our daily lives? The challenges are many and we often feel overwhelmed." Taro, "You're right. Challenges are an integral part of the journey, but they don't have to define us," replied the monk. "The key is not to react impulsively, to take a moment to observe our emotions and choose how to respond. Meditation is a precious tool for cultivating this awareness, but even small daily actions can make a difference. For example," he continued, "when someone criticizes or insults us, we can choose not to respond with anger or resentment. We can breathe deeply, observe our emotions, and respond calmly and compassionately. When we are faced with a difficult situation, we can try to see the opportunity for growth that lies behind the challenge. And when we feel overwhelmed, we can take a moment to meditate, to connect with our inner peace and find the strength to move forward." "But Master," Hannah asked, "what to do when the fear of the judgment of others or the adverse events of life paralyze us, prevent us from acting?" Eriko responded gently, "Hannah, fear is a natural emotion, but we must not allow it to control us. When fear emerges, recognize it, welcome it without judgment, and then let it go. Remember, you are much stronger than you think. You have an immense inner strength within you, a light that can illuminate your path and that of others." "And how can we cultivate this inner strength, Master?" Kenji asked. "Through the constant practice of meditation, awareness, and compassion," Eriko replied. "Through studying the teachings of the Buddha and applying these principles in our daily lives. Through connecting with nature, with other living beings, and with our deepest selves." At this point, Eriko got up and approached a window that overlooked the monastery garden. "Look," he said, pointing to a blossoming cherry tree. "This tree doesn't care what anyone else thinks. It just blooms, offering its beauty to the world. We too can learn to flourish, to express our true nature without fear of other people's judgment and without fear of the events that happen in our lives." The disciples remained silent, contemplating the beauty of the cherry tree. Ariko's words had touched their souls, awakening a new awareness in them. The sun had now disappeared below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and orange. Ariko looked at his disciples. "My dears," he said in a warm and reassuring voice, "I wish you to find the peace and serenity you seek. Remember, true wisdom lies in not allowing anything or anyone to disturb your inner peace. Act as if nothing and no one bothers you, and your mind will blossom like a lotus in the mud." In the following days, the disciples committed themselves to putting the monk's teachings into practice. Taro, who was previously impulsive and reactive, began to meditate every morning, trying to calm his mind and observe his emotions with detachment. Gradually, he learned not to let anger or frustration overwhelm him, but to respond to challenges calmly and wisely. Hana, who had always been shy and insecure, began practicing self-compassion. He learned to accept his flaws and imperfections, to recognize his intrinsic value and not to seek the approval of others. And little by little, her self-confidence grew, and she began to express her true nature without fear of other people's judgment. Kenji, who had always been anxious and worried, began to practice gratitude. Every day, he took a moment to reflect on the good things in his life, the people he loved, and the experiences that had enriched him. Gradually, his anxiety decreased, and he began to live in the present, appreciating every moment. The other disciples also made progress on their spiritual journey. Some dedicated themselves to meditation, others to the practice of loving kindness, still others to the study of sacred texts. Everyone found their own way to cultivate inner peace and emotional balance. One day, while the disciples were gathered in the monastery garden, Ariko called them to him. "My dears," he said, "I am very proud of the progress you have made. You have learned to act as if nothing and no one bothered you, and this has allowed you to find greater peace and serenity. But remember that the spiritual journey does not end here. There will always be challenges and difficulties to face. The important thing is to never give up. Continue to practice and cultivate our inner wisdom. Remember, peace and happiness are not goals to be achieved, but a state of being to be cultivated day after day." The disciples listened carefully, aware that the journey was still long, but confident that, thanks to Ariko's teachings, they could face any obstacle. But what does Ariko's story teach us? It teaches us that inner peace is not a luxury, but a necessity. In an increasingly frenetic and stressful world, it is essential to find a lifeline within ourselves, a place of peace and serenity where we can take refuge when the storms of life overwhelm us. Meditation, mindfulness, compassion, and gratitude are powerful tools that help us cultivate this inner peace. But even small daily actions, such as a kind smile, a gesture of help, or a word of comfort, can make a difference. Finally, let us always remember that our happiness does not depend on external circumstances, but on our ability to find peace within ourselves. And by acting as if nothing and no one bothers us, we can transform our lives into a richer and more meaningful experience, full of joy, love, and compassion.